Hi guys, my name is Vaibhav and welcome to Chalchitra Talks. Today is the 100th episode of Chalchitra Talks movie recommendation series, and today we have a special guest amongst us. His name is Peter Gould, who is a writer and a filmmaker. He is also the co-creator and showrunner of one of my all-time favorite shows, Better Call Saul. I spoke to Peter last week and he gave us not just movie recommendations but also a lot of books and podcast recommendations. So let's jump right into the conversation I had with Peter for the 100th episode of Chalchitra Talks. Hi Peter, hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Yeah,
It's early in the morning for you,
yeah. 6:30 a.m. here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, so that's the time I usually get up around here. So there you
Oh,
go.
nice to have you on this chat with me, and I'm feeling so honored to have you for the 100th episode. And this is like a dream come true because I did not I could never imagine that the tweet would actually reach to you and you would respond and this will happen.
Well, I love the fact that you guys are watching our little show. That means a lot. That's terrific. It's terrific to know that it's that we've crossed the continents in some way, and that you guys are willing to put up with all the weirdness of the American
Yeah,
legal system in your entertainment.
absolutely. Absolutely. We just love it.
Do lawyers wear wigs in India, or is that only in the UK now?
No, so it was like a very prehistoric thing. I don't know. This is not like in the current judicial system. It doesn't happen right now.
Good.
So, Peter, I'll mostly be taking recommendations from you because our channel is a recommendation-based platform. And this is like a movie recommendation, 100th episode. So we can start with your three movie recommendations, or maybe more than three.
Oh, wow. Well, I have, obviously I love movies. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love movies from the time I was a kid. I was lucky. I was lucky enough to be able to see silent movies when I was a kid. So silent movies have always been really, really important to me, especially Buster Keaton was always a touchstone for me. But then, more, and then, a lot of the films of Jean Renoir, especially Rules of the Game, has always been a big favorite. But then there's also, a lot of American classics like the Coppola film, of course, The Godfather, of course, but also Coppola's film, The Conversation, which I saw as a child is just, it's a remarkable movie, and I never get tired of that one. And of course, you mentioned in your email Midnight Run,
Yes.
which is I think there are certainly echoes of Midnight Run in Better Call
Yeah.
Saul. We talk about movies all day in the writers' room because we're all movie buffs, and that's one of the things that we enjoy about Jimmy McGill
Yeah.
is that he's a movie buff and he
Yeah.
loves movies,
Yeah.
and so we name check a lot of movies. We use clips of movies within
Yeah.
because he's like us in that way. I don't
Absolutely.
think he's like us in a lot of other ways. So certainly, all that jazz is a movie that gets mentioned really
Yeah.
early. Network
Man.
a great movie. A personal favorite of mine is a movie called The In-Laws,
Okay.
which was made in the 70s with Peter Falk.
Okay.
And then there's another movie that's really speaks to me as a filmmaker. It's a movie called Topsy Turvy, which is a
Yeah.
Mike Leigh movie about Gilbert and Sullivan.
Okay.
And that's a movie. I wish it was a TV show because I would watch it every week. And it's what it's about more than anything, I think, is the joy of collaboration.
Yeah.
What it's like to really not usually in movies and television and books, everything comes out of one person's head, and it's about the fight to get this thing made. And this is a particular movie which has a lot of stories of inspiration, and of what it's like to sometimes the sparks that rise between people that make something that none of them could have made individually. So that's a big favorite of mine.
I actually
Boy, I
like
could keep
Mike
going.
Lee's Naked also. Naked by Mike Lee. That I'm a big fan
Oh
of that.
yeah, that's much rougher. He's a remarkable filmmaker. His approach is really different.
Yeah.
Just how he makes his films is so fascinating to me
Yeah.
because they come out of I guess, and I'm not an expert, out of long collaborations with actors in a very structured. He has a structured way of doing that and develops the script with the cast, which is it's fascinating to me. It's almost the opposite of the way American television anyway works. So that I love those movies. Yeah.
It's interesting how you also mentioned Jimmy being a fan of films, because I was watching the episode Nailed today, the season 2 episode 9, and in which there is a dialogue, if you want to be a filmmaker, grow a pair, he says to his filmmaking crew. So I like his filmmaking side also, like as a filmmaker, that the Jimmy that we get to see, it's incredible.
There's an episode in season 5 where he's directing, and he uses he says they're cue cards, but don't look at them. Be natural, but enjoy it. Just do anything you want, but do this. And he has a whole series of contradictory. This is Tom Schnauz wrote this one. A whole series of contradictory statements, and they're all directorial buzzwords that we all use. It's the little phrases that you use as a director. And one of the other directors on the show, Michael Morris, kind of smiled at Tom and said, "You kind of ruined directing for all of us, because now you've made fun of everything that we say." So absolutely.
So I also want to now talk about, like, the second question I have is about title intros, because I've heard quite a lot of the Better Call Saul podcast, the Insider podcast, and in one of the episodes, you and Vince said that you consciously wanted to create a weird or a bad-looking title intro for Better Call Saul. So I want to know, which are the shows whose titles that you like if you would have to name 3.
What a good question. It's I always think back to the titles of TV shows that I watched when I was a kid. And so I think the touchstones for me go back further in time, even than, certainly, Game of Thrones has a great title sequence, but the ones that I think about are the original TV show Mission Impossible, which had a great Lalo Schifrin music cue. And, there's a fuse going across the screen. And then there are shots, some of which are from the episode you're about to see. It's been imitated many times. And that one is just, to me, very eye-catching and beautifully done. And in fact, it's funny, but Skip McDonald, who's one of the main editors on the show, both shows, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, comes from a show business and actually an editorial family. His father cut that show, Mission Impossible, and so he actually cut some of those intros that I think I like a lot. There's also there's a British show from the 60s called The Prisoner. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Patrick McGowan was the star. Fascinating show. It's a show about a spy. He's almost a James Bond type, and he's going to resign from British intelligence, and he gets kidnapped when he's made that decision and spirited away to a village that he cannot escape from. And the opening titles tell the whole story of him resigning and getting kidnapped and being unable to escape, all encapsulated in probably 60 seconds. And that's something that I really admire. But I also think there's something to be said for very short main titles. One of the trends now, there's a show here called Fargo, which is based on the. One of the things that Fargo does is very interesting. There's actually I think, if I remember right, there's almost no main title at all, and all the titles go to the back of the show, including the director, the creator, and all that. Those are also titles I like. I think when we were doing our titles, one of the things that happens when you do titles is that you can hire an outside company, and this is common, that they will read your script and or see some images from the episodes, and they will do a pitch, and you'll read this pitch, and then you can give them notes, or you may even go out to many companies, and they'll all pitch their version of what your title should be. And I think when we did both shows, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, I think our feeling was we kind of wanted to do it ourselves instead of having no matter how talented, brilliant outside company do it. So Breaking Bad, of course, is a very simple main title. And then Better Call Saul, as you said, we decided to make them look as bad as we possibly could.
Nice. That's interesting. Now, the other question that I had, like I said, I'm a big fan of the episode Chicanery. Like, I have so much to say about it. The monologue in that episode, like, is one of the highlights of the episode. So, I wanted to know which are the monologues that have inspired you throughout your life, that have stayed with you in a way, be it a TV show or a movie.
Sure. Well, there's one in Breaking Bad that I'm very partial to. I wish I had written it. It's when Mike tells a story to Walt about his time as a police officer, and he uses the phrase "no half measures," and that was written by Sam Catlin, and I was actually on the set when we shot it, and I co-wrote the episode with Sam. And Jonathan Banks came up to me and said, "Oh, this is what I love, this monologue. This is a tremendous opportunity for me." And I said, "Well, I'm so glad you like it, Jonathan, but actually, I didn't write this one. It was actually Sam." And he was like, "Oh." And then every time he saw Sam after that, he would say, "Sam." He was very happy to see him. In terms of monologues, there's so many. One that always stays with me is a movie called The Verdict, which actually David Mamet wrote. And there's a tremendous monologue at the end of it. It's actually a summation to a jury. And there's a character, it's Paul Newman plays this character who is he's an alcoholic, kind of bad lawyer. And he has he doesn't articulate a philosophy during the movie until the very end. And it's a very religious speech too. It's a beautiful, it's all done in one shot with Paul Newman doing this enormously effective monologue, which is about the case and about basically he's talking to the jury, and all the evidence that his client was wrongfully killed has been excluded by the judge, who is partial to the other side. And it seems like he's lost it. And then he gives this speech, which is just fantastic. And that makes it, you feel almost finally this guy who's been kind of inarticulate through the whole movie finally speaks from the heart. And that is a tremendous, tremendous monologue. I think that's great. If you ever seen the movie There Will Be Blood,
Yeah.
That has basically anything in that movie is they're all great monologues.
Yeah. So, have you seen anything from India recently? Any TV show or movie that you might have noticed?
I'm going to ask right now. I need your help because I'm going to be very embarrassed, and I'm going to sound very provincial, and say I haven't. And so, what's your recommendation? And by the way, I'm on Twitter. And so if any of your viewers want to tweet at me with a recommendation of where to start, I'm absolutely wide open.
So I have a couple of recommendations for you. There is a film which came out last year. It's called Eeb Ale Oo. It's about a guy whose job is to scare off the monkeys. So there is a big problem of monkeys in India, and especially the northern part of India. So in New Delhi, where all the government buildings are there, a guy is given a job to scare off the monkeys, and he uses these three words, Eep Ale Oo. And this is how, by the dictation of these three words, he scares off the monkeys. But the problem is he's not able to scare off the monkeys. He just sucks at that job of scaring the monkeys.
Wow. Will you tweet? Will you
Yeah,
email me
definitely.
or tweet? Send that title to me so
Yeah,
I have it written down. That's
yeah.
great. That sounds great.
So, and the other one is a movie called Court. I wanted to recommend this to you because it's also related to the judiciary system of India. It's directed by Chaitanya Tamhane. So, Court is a movie which shows you the true side of the Indian judiciary system. How so many people are there and nobody actually cares about what's happening inside the court. And Chaitanya Tamhane is very, very young, and his film got selected in Venice Film Festival this time. Yeah. So
Wow.
his new film, it's called Disciple. And he's very young. Like, he makes me jealous because I think, like, I am 26 and I think he's 29 or 30. So he is doing.
Oh, you guys.
So these would be the two films, and there is a filmmaker from India who is who started this indie movement. His name is Anurag Kashyap. Anurag Kashyap has made a lot of films like Gang of Wasipur, Black Friday. So you should see everything by Anurag Kashyap. I'll send you the complete list on the email.
Oh, please do. That sounds great. These are great recommendations.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. Now I want to move over to the books, and first I would like to know, as a writer, do you prefer reading fiction or non-fiction?
I read both. Uh, it's one of the difficulties of because making the show is so all-consuming. I don't read as much outside because I'm reading scripts. I don't read as much as much as I used to, but I like them both. Sometimes it's easier to read nonfiction, but my daughter, who is a college student, who's not that much younger than you, she's had me reading. She's been pushing books on me. There's certain books. She said, "You have to read this, Dad." And she's had me reading the French author Émile Zola, and I just finished one the other day, Le Bête Humain, the Human Beast, and it knocked me on my ass. I thought it was really spectacular. So I think I'm going to be reading some more Zola, that's for sure. I read them both. I do, and I've been reading about. I'm reading about World War II, and there's also a nonfiction wise. There's a book that is really helped me to understand my own country better, much better. It's a book called Nixonland by Rick Perlstein, and it's a work of it's fairly recent history. It's all about America in the really the 60s and 70s. It's called Nixonland, but it's not just about Richard Nixon. And it really, in some of the events, I happened in my lifetime, but I was a small child, and it really helped me to understand the U.S. better, and also to understand what's happening in the U.S. now, a little bit, not that much, but a little bit.
Okay. So any fantasy recommendations or like fiction recommendations?
Oh, fantasy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, absolutely fiction. Catch 22,
Yeah.
which is a book by Joseph Heller,
Yeah.
is an all-time favorite of mine. It's very funny. It's a very funny book. I also love anything by Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah. Slaughterhouse
It's a
Five.
wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful of Slaughterhouse Five.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
another World War II book.
Yeah.
I love Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
I read Bleak House recently because like the movie you were talking about. It's a great book about the legal system,
Yeah.
and that was really interesting to me. What else? Yeah, that's a lot. And then
Yeah.
I've been reading a little bit of history. I've been reading about the Battle of Britain, and there's a book. There's a historian named Anthony Beevor, a British historian who is really writes riveting books, and he wrote a book about Stalingrad that I loved, and also George Orwell. I'd read George Orwell's fiction, but I hadn't read his nonfiction.
Oh,
And I just read Homage to Cataluna, and then Down and Out in Paris and London,
okay.
which are both, I mean, they're both rip-roaring reads, really,
Wow.
really enjoyable. And then, of course, on a somewhat lighter, anything by Stephen King.
Yeah.
I'm all for Stephen King, absolutely.
So as we are coming towards the end of the conversation, I also want to know about some additional recommendations. Like you are also part of the Insider podcast of Better Call Saul. Are there any podcasts that you listen to by yourself? Like, are you a podcast fan in general?
Yeah, I love podcasts. It's one of the problems of the pandemic is I'm not in the car at all.
Okay.
I'm at home all the time, so I don't listen as much. There's again history. I love the BBC History Extra podcast, and there's also a BBC show called In These Times with Melvin Bragg that I love. There's a podcast called 99% Invisible,
Yeah.
which is a podcast which is about the design of the world,
Wow.
that I really enjoy. And I also listen to a lot of, or I have listened to a lot of American political podcasts, but I think American politics is I'm not gonna recommend that particular black hole, or I'm not gonna to anybody else. I think there's an artificial intelligence podcast that's hosted by an academic named Lex Friedman. The Lex Friedman podcast that's also sometimes very, very interesting. He interviews a lot of people with some fascinating ideas, including Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So podcasts are incredible, and I love, of course, movie podcasts and interviews with filmmakers. Are always. Roger Deakins just came out with a podcast. I've only listened to a little bit of it. Yeah. But I think that's very exciting.
Yeah.
That there's a venue for to hear what Roger Deakins and his friends think about filmmaking.
Absolutely. So I have heard about your favorite films, TV shows, podcasts, books. And now on a lighter note, which are your favorite superheroes?
My favorite superhero is you may not be familiar with him because he's an American television character named Columbo, played by Peter Falk. And he's a police detective, and his superpower is that he seems like a fool, but he's actually brilliant. And he can't fly, but he is a superhero because he's super perceptive about human beings and he's super logical. And so I think he's my favorite. He's probably my favorite superhero. I also, when I was a kid, I loved Batman was always a big favorite of mine, and of course Superman. Those are pretty basic. You're pretty basic superheroes, really.
Okay, I am such a big fan of the side characters which are there in Better Call Saul, like the filmmaking crew, and my personal favorite is Dr. Caldera, who is the veterinary doctor. So I had also written it in the email, like, would it be possible to make a spin-off series of Dr. Caldera after Better Call Saul?
What a great idea. I love that idea. I love Dr. Caldera. He's played by Joe DeRosa, who's a very funny stand-up comedian. Boy, that would be kind of interesting. What do you think the show would be? What would happen week to week? Would he be taking care of animals, and then what else?
We would want to know the backstory of him. What did he do in college? Like, how did he end up? Maybe he wanted to become like a cardiologist and like neurologist, but he ended up becoming a vet. So what's the story there? Maybe something like that.
I love that. Maybe he has a gambling problem, and that's why he needs all that extra money.
Yeah.
But how did he get started? I mean, that's a great question. How does he get started? How does he get started knowing everybody in the underworld of Albuquerque? I like it. It's a great idea. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I like Joe, and I know Vince does too.
Yeah. So I did not know he was a stand-up comedian. So thanks for that trivia also, because
you can find him on YouTube. He's very funny.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And that's it. I think we are running short on time, but I would just want to thank you again, Peter, for the whole thing, for doing this conversation with me, especially for the 100th episode. And this would mean so much to our fans. And this is such a big honor. Thank you so much, Peter.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And thank you for watching the show. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please watch Chalchitra Talks and subscribe right below on YouTube.